Welcome to the wonderful world of APBA Pro Basketball. Hello, this is Rod with Rod's Tabletop Hoops on YouTube, broadcasting a part of a Boxed Games series, Part 2, featuring APBA Pro Basketball. Now, for this video is a little bit unusual. I do not have the original game box, as you can kind of see on this advertisement on eBay. There's someone selling their APBA Pro Basketball game for $550, in addition to $28 in shipping. But that's, in my opinion, a little bit overpriced. But that's basically what the APBA Pro Basketball game looks like. It's probably a box. It's around, I don't know, it's probably 18 by 22 inches or something of that nature. It's a very large box. I had this box as a child, but somehow in the process of going to college and going out on my own, the box got lost in the shuffle. And frankly, that's just fine with me, because I did not end up playing much APBA Pro Basketball after a few games. Tried the original game. They also had the shortened version. And let me give you a little closer look at the game box if you haven't seen it before. I think most people have. It's a pretty big box, and it's got huge boards inside of it, just like all the other APBA sports games, including APBA baseball, APBA football, APBA saddle racing, APBA bowling, maybe even APBA golf. I don't think they've got more golf courses than boards, but it's definitely one of the bigger boxes you're going to find in any tabletop sport. That's the reason I included it, even though I don't own the original box anymore. So anyway, if you're anyone's familiar with APBA and you were a child growing up in the 60s or 70s or early 80s, you realize that APBA, they love to send you mailers about their upcoming games. And usually they'd be in the form of an APBA envelope here. This one is addressed to me at my childhood address. But you can see Millersville Road, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And what you would receive would be a full color brochure that you can see way on the back there. But usually, that would come every year at the same time, over and over and over and over. They spent a lot of money on brochures. I've still got 7 or 8 brochures. And each of those brochures would come with their own sample playing card. Well, look at that. There's Magic Johnson from probably 1981 or 1980. And, he plays guard, forward, and center. How about that? Then you got Adrian Dantley, scoring champion, plays forward and guard. You got Big Moses Malone. Don't forget scoring champion, George Gervin, the Iceman. I always like the fact they put nicknames on the cards, much like PTG basketball. And then, of course, a later one here, I think it's from the late 80s, Isaiah Thomas, 1987. You've got these sample cards. They're rated on offense and defense. 5 is the highest. 4 was the second highest. You can see Thomas has 39 on assists, which is magnificent. Magic does have 42, though. Does top him right there. That's a 19. Oh, we don't even have a year on this one. Always tough to identify APBA basketball years on their cards. They don't really have stats. They just have descriptions, heights, weights of the player, year born. So anyway, but that's what you would get in every one of these colorful brochures. And I'm going to first, before I read the colorful brochure, I'm going to read the original brochure of Fast Break Basketball to you just for a second, because they had not had a basketball game for a long time in the 50s to the early 60s, and they finally come out with one, and here's what they have to say. The APBA Pro Basketball game is played by actually deploying the 5 offensive players on a sectionalized basketball court. And when they refer to it as a sectionalized basketball court, I'll try to get you at least a limited view. This is kind of what it looks like right there. That's your sectional basketball court. I can't really make that too much bigger, can I? Oh, I was trying to make that so it centers, but it doesn't seem to want to center. But anyhow, that's your sectionalized basketball court. And there's, inside A, more just outside the dunk position is a B. D's toward the top of the key. C's are in the corners, and the E and F parts are much further from the hoop. And I think in later years they designate those as 3-point shooting type spots. But anyway, those are your sectionalized portion of the court. Section A is under the basket. They kind of explain that. Each team is assigned one of the 2 halves. Let's take a look at what went into their mind. Let's see, right here. APBA basketball is here at last. The APBA Pro Basketball game made its debut last May. More than any of our succession of games, this one was the one APBA fans clamored for most eagerly. Day after day, the mail brought more and more requests for an APBA basketball game. Only APBA can make a good one, quote unquote. Only APBA can make it right. This is what you said, and this is what we did. We waited until we had it right, perfected for the fan who is particular. Worked on and worked over until it measured up to APBA quality, like our baseball, football, and golf games. The basketball game was designed to capture the excitement and managing and directing the play of real-life personnel, combined with a realistic reproduction of the game of basketball as it is played by the pros. And so finally, in 1966, it made its appearance, and we are offering it first to you, our army of devoted fans, before we present it to the general public. We know you're going to agree that it is well worth waiting for. It was well worth waiting for. We didn't rush it just to put another game on the market. We have a reputation to maintain, and we're satisfied that in the APBA Pro Basketball game, we have maintained it. So it's the 65-66 season of cards, which was APBA's first, and they basically start talking about how the game plays, and there's nothing colorful. But way back in the day, it looks like you could get the complete game for $9.25, $9.72 if you live in Pennsylvania, or $10 or $10.50 foreign, 66 editions. So there you go. That is the first brochure of APBA Pro Basketball, and the cards looked a little bit like this. Let's grab a tremendous team like the Los Angeles Lakers of 66. I'm not even sure if the Lakers of 66 were that good. They certainly had some talent. And there you are, Elgin Baylor. This is the original font they used. They come with a little tab on top so that you put that on the defensive side of, say, this game board over here. Put all your defensive tabs, and you technically guard players that way. And then you put your offensive cards on your offensive end of the court. So there's Baylor, Boozer. These never have been really played with, but I did get them very cheaply way back in the day. I think they had 2-for-1 sales. I've got advertising that shows that. There's Gail Stumpy Goodrich. First round with the Lakers before he got picked up by the expansion Suns. Walt Hazard before he went to Mahdi Abdul-Rahman. Darrell Imhoff, big lunking lug of a center who was adequate but never could overtake a Bill Russell or a Wilt Chamberlain who could. Rudy LaRusso, Jerry, Mr. Clutch, West, and Gene Wiley, another one of their backup centers. But these are the long envelopes. They're pretty cool. But once again, it's a pretty package of teams and players. I was going to try and check out the Philadelphia 76ers just because they were on the verge of doing something special in 66-67, and this was Wilt and in company starting to create a championship team. Of course, the Celtics did win their last consecutive championship, the 7th straight in 1966. And here's Al Bianchi, more known for his coaching ability, called him Blinky Bianchi. That's a pretty good one. He wore some pretty thick glasses. Wilton Norman Chamberlain right there. They don't really have his nicknames or anything. Very interesting fact. Billy Cunningham, I wish they would have done a few more nicknames here. Dave Gamby, they didn't really show much. Hal Greer, Art Heyman, Luke Jackson, Wally Jones, Gary Ward, and Chet the Jet Walker. They didn't put that there. They show the positions in 2 different slots for Chet Walker. They all have personal foul ratings. And basically when you set up this game, particularly with the shortened version, which I will get into in a little bit, you basically take every player, and if you have a starting lineup of 5, you say Al Bianchi will be personal foul 1 to 19. Wilt Chamberlain will be personal foul 20 to 31 because he's got a 12 on there. And you do that for everything, for fouls, rebounds, assists, and then you even tally up, I think, offensive and defensive points. So it's a bunch of tallying and ranges. I can kind of show you because I don't have the original score sheets, but I have this is what a portion of the score sheet looks like. If you want to take a look at the score sheet, where is it? It's somewhere around here. I thought they had score sheets on this listing here. I thought it was, well, maybe I'm wrong. Those are the score sheets right there. This portion is basically right there inside the score sheet. I pre-entered ranges for some of my teams. Like this is Detroit with Steve Mix, probably 1970. Milwaukee, yeah, the 5-5 is like Lou Alcindor from 70. He's got 60 rebounds. So you can see they go 1 to 4 on rebounds, 5 to 9, and just as you get bigger, 10 to 21, 22 to 35, 36 up, and you do it with every position. So when one of those situations occurs, you roll the dice and you determine which player gets the score, the assist, the foul, or the rebound. So it's a pretty arduous task. That's just the half of it as far as APBA Pro Basketball goes. It just really was a difficult game. That was actually the faster version of the game. The individual original game has you taking the ball with a player, say Al Bianchi, the point guard, and you put a ball marker on a section of the court, and he dribbles the ball with the D column, passes the ball with the P column, or shoots the ball with the S column. You get three possession times with 3 opportunities to score within a possession. So, you could say Al Bianchi, he might pass the ball. Does he pass successfully to Cunningham? You roll the 2 dice, and it's an 11 to 66 result. And you roll it, and you go, oh, there's 55 right there. Well, let me put that where people can see it. 55 right there, and on Bianchi's passing column, 55 is a 5. You refer to a game chart, game board, like, I don't know, that's a field goal board. But there's a passing and a dribbling column, and you determine whether that pass was successful. Then whoever has it next, you have to dribble or pass or shoot. And on the 3rd roll, you have to shoot. Otherwise, it's a 24-second violation if you fail to do so. So that kind of explains APBA Pro Basketball in a nutshell. It's a kind of an arduous game. I was going to go to the most tabletop basketball fans are always interested in what is the playing time for APBA Pro Basketball. Basketball plays faster than any other professional sport. There are fewer breaks in the action than in baseball, football, and golf. Obviously, one cannot roll dice and look for the results as fast as the passing and dribbling take place in basketball, so the process must be slowed down in a tabletop game. However, we have customers who tell us they have played the game in approximately 2 hours after having developed a playing technique. But this is a complex game and it won't play this fast at the beginning. It is a game that the true basketball fan can really sink his teeth into. So they kind of like glaze over that a little bit. They don't really say, I don't think 2 hours has ever been accomplished in this game, but who knows? Here's the short version. If your time is limited, there's another option available to you. For the playing rules of the APBA Pro Basketball game offer also a shortened version. Playing by this method speeds up Oops, I lost my space. Speeds the game by eliminating all the individual passing and dribbling prior to each shot. Statistics will be nearly identical, but play patterns and counter defenses are dispensed with. Experienced players complete a game in less than an hour when using the short version. So here you have APBA explaining that you can play a short version that doesn't really have as much realism, and that's the version that I ended up playing. I actually was able to incorporate my version of APBA with some of my original Fast Break games. You know, Fast Break, they have a brochure that looked like this. This was their best brochure ever. It's the Fast Break brochure, came out around 1979, 78, 79. And one thing the Fast Break brochure has, before I move on with my integration of Fast Break and APBA, was the quote that says, "Fast Break comes in a sturdy but plain brown box as we have put our emphasis on the quality of the game inside, not in fancy boxes." I just found that to be a direct shot at APBA Pro Basketball. But anyway, what I would typically do is I would take the, let me get my player determination cards. I would use for offense possession player determination card in lieu of the possession the way they did it in APBA. So I'd have that. And then we'd use the offensive charts, the short version charts, for a player like Isaiah Thomas, and he would just, you know, if it was defender's card, I had actually made defender's card for certain players. Let me see, like my Knicks of 1970. I know I did it here. Not only do I have the offensive cards here, but I actually made Fast Break defensive cards. And they're kind of estimated and everything, but I was actually capable, using the APBA boards and the APBA time clock, or Fast Break boards, the Fast Break time clock, able to integrate Fast Break and APBA for certain games. And that worked out much better than playing the shortened version on its own. It was a lot more intuitive and fun, and the rebounds, you know, they worked themselves out and everything, and it actually worked a little bit. It wasn't perfect, but you talk about workarounds. We talk about workarounds in games like Status Pro and Stratomatic that haven't really changed their formula for many, many years. And of course, Status Pro went under and has seen a reboot with a lot of homebrew people who've done a fabulous job of making it fun again. APBA is a different world that no one seemed to be able to make a fix for this game from 1966 through probably 1988. I don't think there was any improvements or upgrades. There wasn't too much you can do to make this game fun. And you look at all the cards I've got sitting over here, and I don't know how I got into all of these cards. I got each one of these seasons probably for an average of less than $10 a season. And they also include some things such as APBA's all-time teams. You know, you can see Paul Arizin, Baylor, Cousy, Davies, Sam Jones, George Mike and Bob Pettit, Bill Russell, Dolph Shays, and Bill Sharman. I mean, these are not, I never really played these. I just was fascinated by them. I did not play them ever because there just was not a real reason for me to try to play an all-time Titans team in this format of game known as APBA. So APBA basketball. I mean, I love APBA baseball, and I still own APBA baseball sets, but I just could not see it, but still, these are still fascinating cards. Bob Berick, Joe Folks, Alex Groza. This stuff is even before my time. Tommy Heinsohn, who I knew more as a coach. Slater Martin, the point guard. A few of these players. I know who all of these players are, but I couldn't tell you which one of them had really the best jump shot or the best driving ability, other than what I've read in NBA history books over the years. So you can see field goal percentages from even this side of the league. The all-time A team, I would say, many of them are barely at 40%. So the shooting was not all that great in the early 50s through late 50s, maybe even early 60s here with some of these players. But still a fascinating group of teams they offered. They also offered the ABA, and the ABA, a team like the Memphis Tams or the Pacers, who always seem to be winning a championship. That's always a worthy team. Like, oh, look at Johnny Baum's a 1-1 on offense and defense. 5 is your best. So then there's a great Roger Brown. You can't go wrong with a Roger Brown, of course. Don Boozy was not an elite defender as of yet. But all of those ratings do, when you're playing the full version, and I think even the shortened version, at least gives you a sense of team defense. It doesn't really do as much individual as I recall, but yeah, there's Darnell Dr. Dunk Hillman. See, they started using an occasional nickname here and there, and I think they did it more in their baseball games, actually. But that's 74 ABA, that's 1969-70 NBA, 66 NBA. These are the cards I was given, the 1979 over here, and a lot of them I didn't do it, but the prior owner that gave it to us, who could not finish one game of APBA on his own, we got these little tabs, and that's where that's the defensive separation. So you got Gus Gerard on offense with the big card, and then you got Gus Gerard on defense, with, or Phil Ford or Billy McKinney on offense. All these guys. So I just decided not to detach them. I didn't need to necessarily do that to play the games. Limited amount of games that I played, mostly shortened versions, hardly any full version of games. But anyway, in that packet I was talking about, the envelope that you get when you get the mailer every single year, that usually comes with not only just a sample card like Isaiah Thomas right here. It also comes with the latest roster sheet. No, this one's probably the one that came with Isaiah Thomas. So it shows your 10-man rosters. Another issue with APBA Pro Basketball. 10-man rosters, they never ever gave you the fringe player opportunity. I'm not even sure if they did with the second issue of the APBA 2 or whatever they called it in the early 90s. So that was always a little frustrating because 10 guys is not always what a lot of people like. They like to have that 11th or 12th man, especially if there's an injured player that could have been a key player if he had played the whole season. And then you, of course, get the full color brochure. And I'm going to pull up one of my many brochures that I have and kind of just show you, the front side is fairly similar almost every year. It talks about I lost another card. Let's see who that is. Oh, it's another Adrian Dantley. But anyway, it says, it touts more realism, more features, more accuracy. It doesn't really have, because the APBA Pro Basketball game was created prior to the recording of turnovers, block shots, and steals. They never integrated those into the original game until they came out with the game in probably 92 or 93. I'm not sure if they even integrated it then. But they got dribbling, passing, rebounding, stolen balls, intercepted passes, wild passes, loose balls, jump balls, inbound plays, fast breaks, the full court press. So they talk about all these things it can do, but you kind of speak in generalities. It's a high-level strategy game. You think Stratomatic is with inside and outside defenders and key matchups, low post defenders and things. This thing, you're doing everything for the players. It's like you are handling each player. I'm not a huge fan of that. I'm more of a fan of roll the ball out there, let the players run the offense. If they succeed, great. If they don't, you substitute. And so this game is quite the opposite. This is as detailed as it gets. The back side of the brochure is not just a place to show a few more of the passing and dribbling boards. You've got passing boards, dribbling boards, which, some possessions could take, a couple minutes to pull off, multiple rolls. And a field goal board, there's the free throws. It also talks about the game in detail. Let's see what it talks about it. Let's just see one paragraph of how it plays. Suppose on this dice roll the jump ball column had a specified floor section F. It could have been a floor section closer to the basket, but by design the chances for that are less likely. Now you put the ball marker disc in floor section F. Well, where's a ball marker? See, there's your ball marker discs. I got those type of things. And with it, name tab of any one of the 5 players you prefer. There's a detachable name tab at the top of every player's card, as you can see on the enclosed sample card for use in deploying your players on the court. You'll probably use a guard to start working the ball in from back here. Then assign your other 4 players to any of the other 7 floor positions you wish, and you are ready to go. So you're putting Lou Alcindor in the low post. You're putting Bob Dandridge in maybe one of the sideline jump shot areas, and then just Oscar Robertson's handling the ball. So you're kind of doing that, and you just every play you have 3 rolls in order to get a shot off, and so you got to decide if you're going to get a successful passing, dribbling, and shooting. So it's really, according to some of these what the customers are saying, I mean, this game is just fine. I just received your basketball game. I'm going to look at this one right here, and I've played 1 game, and I'm on my 2nd. So all that's saying is like they've played 2. They barely played 1 game, and they're writing a letter. That just does not even seem right. I find your basketball game very enjoyable, and I would like to expand into your fine line of baseball games. So he's like already talking about the other games that are already going on here. Let's see what this guy is. I am an owner of APBA Pro Basketball game, which I bought in 1982 in San Francisco. I think your game is very, very exciting, but now my cards are quite old and no more reflect the real performance of the NBA players, and I don't have all the rookies, so I'd like the new game. So it's not even talking about how he likes the game. He's just talking about getting new cards. They can't find enough compliments about the game. This guy says he got it as a gift and is already his favorite game. I played 3 solitaire games. See, no one's played a dozen games. I mean, that's what gets me with this thing. And by this time in the process, this is a newer, relatively modern brochure. The game has jumped up to $27.95, and you can get APBA score sheets. If you can't, people didn't have access to printers and copiers back in the day, but that shows you how much of a hard sell that APBA did with these nice, beautiful color brochures. These things are not cheap, especially back then. So anyhow, the other markers, other things I put on this table here, these are just little table game markers. So if you're on the playing surface, back to here, these little strips allow you to keep score. They slip in little slits in the board, and it allows you to keep the numbers for points for each team. I think you can put the names of the team. There's a Houston Rockets and a San Diego Clippers. It's like you could slip those right into portions of the game board, so you can actually keep score and do things like that. I think most of these little cards are designed for head-to-head play, the way the defense is and the way these are all the spots on the court. Once again, I have not played this in decades, so I'm not too certain on that. But anyhow, this is what APBA turned out to be from 66 through about, I don't know, I'm going to guess 1988. The game doesn't play very smoothly, and it's been kind of a little joke on a lot of on internet lines and other forms of communication that APBA Pro Basketball is a game that I'm not sure how good a game it is because I've never completed one. So, but you got to think about the audacity of the APBA people. They have all these other great basketball games. I mean, sports games, baseball, football, saddle racing, golf, bowling, they're all well done games. People rarely ever complain about them. And then you got this basketball game that comes out in 66, late 66, 67, and it's terrible from the get-go. It's not easily playable. It takes forever. And, it probably spurned the creation of many other games. And you think they go to the drawing board every year and say, okay, how's baseball doing? Fine. APBA football? Fine. APBA golf? APBA bowling? Oh, yeah, we're doing great. How about basketball? We got one compliment last year. Let's just keep it the same way for the next 15 to 20 years. I mean, that's kind of how I look. It's like, who in the game room is saying this game is worth saving? I mean, this thing needed a major, major overhaul. The reason I bring that up is during that same exact period, there was a game company, PTG Basketball, Pro Table Games Basketball, came out roughly the same year as that 65, 66 season, 67 edition of APBA Pro Basketball. And look at their cards. They've got the same 11 through 66 numbers. Here's the Philadelphia 76ers of 66. They got nice color. They've got all the players. They got Blinky Bianchi, just like them. They love the nicknames. Hal Jump Greer, Chet the Jet, Billy the Kid. And you got Wilt the Big Dipper Chamberlain, Lucius Luke Jackson. These cards are fantastic, and the game plays smooth. Now, this company, PTG, they struggled financially for the first couple of years. If APBA was on their toes and they weren't ready to move from their original basketball game yet, they would have bought out these guys, because this game plays like APBA, almost plays like an APBA baseball basic game. You got two white boards to check on after you roll your dice, and the play is done. It's a very well-made game, reasonably accurate, and just a heck of a lot of fun. And the team shot card for possession is just brilliant, ahead of its time for the 60s. That's PTG Basketball, which, you put a card side by side with these guys, like, well, let's just compare. Let's compare, I can compare Wilt to Wilt. I mean, honestly, there's your two Chamberlains. Came out in the same exact year. One 7 foot and 3/4 inch, one 7'1". Just decided to round up. I remember Wilt being measured at 7'1" and 1/16. That was my favorite thing. So, but anyways, you can see Wilt averaged 48 minutes a game. He just never liked to come out. So, rebound number of 25 on each card. But once again, look at the only difference is the pass, dribble, shoot. The arduous pass, dribble, shoot versus just a randomized number, which also the asterisks serve for free throws. And in APBA basketball, the shooting column is both for field goals and free throws. I'm not exactly sure how they integrated that, but apparently it works out pretty well. Even for a guy like Chamberlain, who shoots 60% from the field and 48% from the foul line. I don't exactly know how they integrated that. I know how they did it with PTG. They got a separate asterisk for every miss. But I don't know, APBA, it does not make any sense to me. But either way, this is a part of basketball lore. It's been a part of basketball history. That's why I'm not trying to totally bash APBA basketball. I'm just trying to let people know that this is just what happened. This is the way history was back in the 60s and 70s. APBA came in. They put out a product that wasn't that great. It spurned the imaginations of some game creators. And by the early 70s, the big three, I'd call them Fast Break, Status Pro, and Stratomatic, maybe even a couple of other upstart games that might not have had a long history, came into play, and they far surpassed the performance of APBA Pro Basketball. But anyway, that has been a review of a boxed game, despite the fact I don't have the box and boards. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please think about subscribing to Rod's Tabletop Hoops, or visiting me on Facebook and our group at Tabletop Basketball Board Games. It's a lot of fun. We do a lot of game plays. We do a lot of discussion, and we check, people check on each other for what their basketball gaming needs are, answering questions, it's really a good place to go. But anyway, I hope you have a good weekend, and this is Rod signing off.